So Insoo was once asked, "What are you doing at the moment, Insoo? What are you interested in?" And Insoo said, "Oh, I'm doing this with child protection services there, and I'm doing this with this group here, and I'm doing this with this country here, and there's a group here." And her interests were just so widespread and different places in the world where she went out and really started things going. And so it was a fascinating story of all the things that she was doing. And then somebody asked her, "What about Steve? What's he doing?" And she said, "Steve, he's interested in the verb to be at the moment." So that was a real beautiful description of their different offerings to solution partners. Steve stayed with looking at the model, and so looked at how can you move it around the world. And then I had a dinner with Steve just shortly before he died, and we knew he was going to die. He knew he was going to die, so we knew it was some of the last chances to ask questions. And so I asked him, "You must feel great pride in doing what you've done and having the whole world really appreciate you." And he said with absolute determination and conviction, he said, "All I ever did was watch Insoo and try to work out what the hell it was she was doing. That's all. It's all Insoo's work." So that's my little memory from both.
I think Insoo was really one of the first people to use solution-focused ideas outside therapy. She always seemed to me to have a very wide interest in schools, in management, in a wide variety of settings. And Steve DeShazer, as we all know, was a genius in his own way, but he was very focused on therapy. And he always said to me, "I can't understand why anyone would want to use this outside therapy. I have no idea about that," in his kind of puzzled way. Which means he did have an idea, but he didn't want to say so. But Insoo was kind of much more open to different settings and engaged with different people. And also she was rather easier to engage with in many ways than Steve was. You know, they were both magical people. But Insoo was always very open, always very encouraging, always very interested, always doing her kind of trademark wow thing, being very impressed with whatever had been going on, and I think a lot of people found that much easier to engage with than Steve DeShazer's kind of grumpy, complaining thing, which is his way of doing it. So I think that Insoo laid a lot of foundation that created a lot of relationships in different settings, without which this field would be not at all the same as it is now. I remember I worked with her once in a workshop in Toronto in 2004, I think it was. And we were supposed to do 2 days together. The organisers had invited us to do 2 days together on SF in organisations. And unfortunately her travel plans had to change, and so she couldn't come to the first day. So what ended up happening was I did the first day and she did the second day. But that meant that she didn't see what I was doing. And then on the second day, of course, the group wanted to hear from her and not me. And so we didn't actually manage to get any exchange between us at all, really, on that thing. And I was always a bit disappointed and sorry that that had happened. I missed an opportunity in some ways to, work with her rather than be the warm-up act and then kind of watch her do her thing, which was always very magical. And she was very flexible. With this day, people asked loads of questions, and she kind of just worked with them and did all sorts of interesting things, but particularly around competing stakeholder interests. And one group wants this and the other group wants that. And I remember she demonstrated this by saying, okay, this table is the marketing department, this table is the sales department, and got them to argue with each other and then kind of worked with it. And it was all magically done, in the room so people could see. She wasn't a great theoriser. She's a brilliant practitioner, and I think when she worked like that and showed her work, then everyone could see it at its best and could really engage with it. So for me, that was what was particularly important about Insoo and the way she's contributed enormously to this movement.
Okay, so about Insoo, I think there's so many stories that I would love to tell from the bottom of my heart. Maybe there is one that is typical for her in many ways that I would like to share. And it was a workshop that she did in Basel. And you know, she made demonstrations, she asked us questions, she gave us answers, and then one woman said, "Look, but what you're trying to explain here seems so incredibly simple and easy, and my clients in the reality of my work life are very difficult. They're bossy, they're stubborn, they're stuck, they don't want to cooperate, they don't want to answer. And I would like to see you, Insoo, you know, work with a client like this. That would be really helpful for me, because this easy peasy stuff, that's not my reality." So Insoo said, "Okay, do you remember one client that was particularly bossy and stubborn?" And the woman said, "Yes, I remember." And Insoo said, "Okay, so I want you to play that client. Okay, so you'll be the client, you walk into my office, and you be her, and then we see." And I know the participant very well, and she is like a very tough, hard-cooking woman herself, okay? So I was expecting tough times. So she walks into Insoo's imagined office, is greeted by Insoo, sits down, and you can see, you know, she is really in this giving someone else a hard time mode. And Insoo smiles at her and says something that I don't remember what she said, but I don't think it was about the words. It must have been about the way that Insoo was looking at her or seeing her or greeting her. And before the first sentence, this woman totally forgot that she was supposed to play a tough client. And being in the presence of Insoo, she became this very friendly, kind sheep. And so that was the demonstration. And maybe it is very typical of what Insoo was being able to do. And many of us who have spent time with her remember the feeling of you know, looking forward to sit down with Insoo because she was such an impressive woman. And then within seconds of sitting with her, she made you believe that you were very special and very important. So I guess that's what I would like to share.
Well, one of my memories of Insoo is when we were at the conference in Interlaken, going up in all the lifts up the mountains to the Eiger. And this was really nice to see her relaxed and enjoying herself. And also on the train journey out of Interlaken, I sat with her and we had sandwiches together. And she was such a charming woman, and the same enthusiasm that she brought to the coaching and the workshops was apparent when you were having a quiet conversation that was in a non-professional setting too. So I always treasure those memories, particularly around Switzerland.
I'm just sitting here with a smile on my face, kind of silently, because in a way that's how I see her, always with this beam on her face. And doing what you're doing now, there's just really attentive being there that was there. And there are a couple of things that I can think of her saying, and saying with such effect. One is the way that she acknowledges problems without getting caught up in any kind of why I was sick or, and she just said, "That's tough."
Yeah, I learned that from her.
That's tough. And then a pause, and then a smile, and you know.
Yeah, and then whatever the client would say, she'd say, "You must have had a very good reason for doing that."
That was my other one. That was my other one.
And I learned that from her too.
Yeah, those two things that I just think, yeah. And you'd see, I mean, seeing it in the flesh, and seeing it on video, just going back and watching the effect that it had.
And for me, it's the absolute quality of respect, absolute belief in the client's ability to do it for themselves. I remember at her workshop in Vienna, which is the first time that I worked with Insoo, the only time I worked with Insoo, and she was demonstrating the live coaching, and she didn't give the clients a task, and somebody said, but there was no action, there was no task, and she said, I didn't need it. She worked hard enough. We got what was needed. She knows what to do now. Trust the client's ability to go and do what she needs to do.
And that was a really good thing to say, especially to people like us who are coaches. We always think, oh, well, you know, we've got to have an action plan at the end of this. And that way, the work is in the conversation.
Yes. And I love the way she demonstrated with somebody, the leading from one step behind. And she demonstrated, she had somebody standing in front of her and she said, and our job is to just lightly tap on the shoulder and say, hey, have a look over here. What does that look like? Hey, maybe have a look over there. Gently, gently, gently.
But she did use that phrase, and I was always puzzled when she said, leave no footprints, to be honest. Because I think, well, okay, don't leave a stamp, but actually, how can you not leave footprints? We all leave them in a little place.
Yes, we do.
I didn't really understand her leave no footprints thing. I never asked. How do you say that?
For me, I understand that as being don't introduce anything from yourself that wasn't already there.
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense to me. Yeah, because on the one hand, you are leading, and leading so skillfully in the direction the person wants to go. But that helps me because I understood it as a sort of don't be in their memory. And I thought, oh no, please, these conversations. She must have left footprints everywhere. She's left them
with us.
Yeah.
She left them on me for sure. But they're beautiful, gentle, treasured footprints.
Yeah, it didn't hurt.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Good enough.
Yes, of course.
How long was that?
3:50.
Yeah.
Fine.
The first time I saw Insoo, she was in a training session in Japan, and I was really surprised at her face expression, so alive, like wow. And so when I do my training, I often quote Insoo expressing like that, and people like it when I imitate her. The most striking thing or episode that influenced me since I experienced the episode was I was taking her post-conference seminar after a Seoul conference. She was doing a demonstration session, and the person who played the client's role was so determined that she will not be turned over positively. No, to me she looked like I will never be positive even in this demonstration. And but Insoo was so persistent in trying this question, that question, this remark or that remark. But the person was so determined, and I was really curious what's gonna happen. And after, I don't know, I think it was a relatively long time for a demonstration, but suddenly Insoo said, I failed. And that, to my surprise, I felt I was reassured, because wow, even Insoo does fail. And since then, whenever I feel I'm not doing a good job, I remember her, and I can easily say to myself, well, I make mistakes.